Okay, we're up to the Mishnah and Daf Kuf Daled Amud Aleph. So we know that a lot of karbanos, the oil and the shlomim, come with it. They come with it wine. Now, how much wine depends on which animal. So lambs get 3 lug, a ram gets 4 lug, and a bull gets 6 lug. So as we're going to see in the Mishnah, the same way wine is associated with karbanos, you're able to donate wine on its own. However, the amount that you donate has to be the same as the karbanos amount. So the amounts that we said were 3 lug, 4 lug, and 6 lug. So says the Mishnah, Ein mismadin lug shnayim b'chamisha. You can't donate 2 and you can't donate 5, because it has to be the amounts that the Torah dictates. The Torah sort of, laid out the possibilities. It has to be similar to the amounts that are associated with the karbanos. You could donate 3, 4, and 6. And the truth is, above 6 lug, you're also able to donate. The reason being is because if the numbers are 3, 4, and 6, then 7 is fine because it's a combination of 3 and 4. And 8 is fine because it's a combination of 4 and 4. And 9 is fine because it's 3 karbanos of lambs. So basically, in 9 and 10 and 11. So basically, above 4, you'll be able to make combinations of 3, 4, and 6. Sag the Gemara, Ibailahu, Yesh keva l'nesachim, ayin keva l'nesachim. Is there a fixed amount for nesachim or not? So what does that mean? So the Gemara, so Rashi explains it means like this. Rashi says if a person says, I'm going to bring a certain amount of nesachim, if there's keva, that means that you have to bring that amount, not more and not less. Kol b'yachad. Ayin keva l'nesachim means that no, there's a little bit more room to play. So what do I mean? The Gemara speaks out. What's the case? Heichidami. A person vows to bring 5 lug. Now we said in the Mishnah, 3, 4, and 6 are the numbers. 5 is no good. So the question is, when you say 5, does that mean that you're completely potter or no? You bring 5, and what you do is 4 are used as that's the the number right below 5. 4 is a legitimate number, so you bring 4 as an optional donation of nesachim corresponding to the amount for a ram. And what do you do with the extra one? The extra one is put aside, and the Beis Hamikdash takes it, and they'll use it for let's say the carbon tamid. If they have an extra one, they'll use it, and if they can't use it that day, they'll sell it. The point is, you bring all 5. You see, if keva, that means that it's all or nothing. You have to bring all 5. You can't bring all 5, so you're potter. Or ein keva l'nesachim means you take the 5, you split it up. You say, okay, 4 is going to be 4 works, and the extra one I'll just use as an optional. Give it to the Beis Hamikdash as an optional. They'll deal with it whatever they deem fit. Says the Gemara, a person vows to bring 5 lugin. If you say there's no keva, that means you separate and you take 4 of the lug, the chazil ayil, because that corresponds to the ram. And the 5th, it's an optional one for the communal karbanos. You put it aside and they'll use it for the carbon tamid, and if it's not used for the tamid, then they'll sell it. But if you say that there is keva, adamali lug karvi, that means you can't bring it unless they're all 5 together. Now what does that mean if you can't bring 5? So what do you have to do? You have to bring a 6th. And you have to bring 6, meaning there's no such thing as just taking the 5 and separating it. It has to be all donated as yourself. You can't just say 4 for me and 1 is for the community. No, all or nothing. Now you can't bring 5, so you have to do is you add a 6 to it. It's the only option. So the Gemara answers as follows. Rabbi Tashima. Here's his answer. The answer is like this. This is a sugya in Shkolim that the Mishnah deals with over there. It says that there were pushkas on Harabayas. So it says over there that there were 6 additional pushkas. Now, why were there additional pushkas? So you can have each carbon that you donate, you could potentially have excess funds. Those excess funds were used for the to buy the carbon oil of the tzibur. These were used for kayetz hamizbeach. How each carbon you could have excess. How do you have excess? So say I have $100, right? I have to separate it. I have to bring a chatas. The chatas costs $100. So I say this $100 for the chatas. The problem is by the time I get to the chatas store, the price of animals plummets, and now the cost of a chatas is not $100, it's $90. So I buy the $90, I buy the chatas, and I have an extra $10. So I would take the $10 and go to the excess chatas pushka and put it in there. And each carbon had a different pushka. The Gemara speaks out. Shishal in the Daf of Vermina Kenegami. What were these 6 pushkas for? So Keneg and Moiser Chatas. One was for the excess money of a Chatas. Moiser Ashamas. One was extra for an Asham. Moiser Asham Nazira. Extra for the Asham Nazira. Moiser Asham Metzaira. Moiser Kinim. Extra birds. Umoiser Minchas Chayte. Now the question is, if you're now telling me that Ein Kevel in Nesachim, which means that if you set aside 5, you don't have to add a 6 and bring it as 6 for yourself, but rather you could take 4 out of the 5, use the 4 out of the 5 as the optional Nesachim for yourself, and the 5th one will be given to the Beis HaMikdash. So there should be another pushka, there should be a 7th pushka, and that is to deal with the excess Nesachim. The same way there's a pushka to deal with the excess funds, so why isn't there a pushka to deal with the excess Nesachim? Im Isa, and if you believe in Kevel Nesachim, Liskin Shayfer Achrina, there should be another pushka, Kenegin Moiser Nesachim, to deal with this Moiser Nesachim, the surplus. If you have an extra one, right, you have 5, so you take 4 for yourself, the 5th one you sell, and you take that funds and you put in the pushka. So why is that pushka not mentioned? So says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. When you have an extra chatas, the extra money from all these karbanas, what were they going for? They were going for optional communal karbanas whenever the Beis HaMikdash was sort of, empty and sort of a quiet moment. It wasn't very common. So you needed to store the money because it could potentially, you can go weeks without needing it. So you need these pushkas. Over here, even if you believe that there is such thing as Ein Kevel Nesachim, which means that if you donate to bring 5, you bring 4 and the 5th is actually donated to the Beis HaMikdash, you didn't need a pushka. I'll tell you why. It was so common for people to bring Nesachim, and you needed Nesachim so frequently, like every day for the Karban Tamid, you wouldn't need a pushka. It's taka true, the 5th one would be optional, but they wouldn't need a pushka. They would just put it on the side, and by the end of the day, they would have 2 more, and they would use it. It was such a frequent concept, you don't need a pushka. The fact that there was no pushka does not mean that it's not true. It just means that a pushka wasn't necessary because it was happening so frequently. Amarava, Tashima, another raya. Now this pasuk is the source that you could bring optional nesachim, because the pasuk describes the nesachim that come along with the oil and come along with the shlamim. Then the pasuk says Ezra. This is the source that you could bring additional optional wine libations. Vikama, and how much wine can you donate? Shloisha lugin. Right, this is all from the Mishnah, based on the Mishnah. The Mishnah is based on this. Shloisha lugin, 3 lug. And how do I know that if you want to have more than 3, you could? That means you could have more than 3. You might think less than 3 and 2. So you see how the pasuk says 3 is an option, and then the pasuk says there's a special pasuk to include more than 3. Let me ask you a question. When you say more than 3, what do you mean? So you say, well, 4. I don't need a pasuk for 4. Why? Because there's a pasuk that says 3 is an option. Why is 3 an option? Because that's as an optional donation, because that's the amount that goes with a carbon that you're obligated to bring. That you have the nesachim that go with the carbon, that's 3, 4, and 6. The pasuk now is saying, I have a special pasuk that you could bring 3 without a carbon, just optionally. Good. Now, when the pasuk says you could bring 3, it doesn't just mean 3. Pashas, it means 3, 4, and 6. There's no reason to say 3 more than 4. So really, when it says 3, it means the numbers that are corresponding to karbanos, you could optionally donate. Then the pasuk says, how do I know that you could bring more than that? Tamaloymer yiyah. So you have a special pasuk more than 3. Again, it can't be 4, because I already know 4 it's the same as 3. I also know 6 is the same as 3, because they're all just the amounts that go with karbanos. So what does it mean more? It must be 5, and it's telling me that 5 is a legitimate option. Why? Because ein kevel nesachim, which means that you could bring 5, 4 go to yourself, and the 5th goes to the Beis HaMikdash. Shema mina ein kevel nesachim. The Gemara speaks it out. My Yosef, what does it mean more than 3? Ilay ma'arba v'shisha. It can't be 4 and 6, because ma'isha shloisha dechaz lekeves. Why does the pasuk say 3 is an option as a donation? Because that's the amount that corresponds to a limb. So arba v'shisha nami chaz la'ayel apar. There's no reason to think that the pasuk needs a special pasuk 4, a special pasuk 6. You don't need all that. One pasuk covers the amounts that are associated with karbanos. Then now there's another pasuk more than that. Can't be 4, can't be 6, can't be 3. So what's the other number? 5. Elav chamisha, and the pasuk is saying that if you could legitimately donate 5, how so? 4 corresponding to the ram, and the 5th is going to be donated to the Beis HaMikdash. Shema mina in kevel nesachim. Shema mina. Good. Ravashi says, Hanan loitanan hachi. But wait a minute. That's not what the Mishnah. That's not what our Mishnah says. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says you can't donate 2 and 5. Now 2 is legitimately no good. Now the question is 5. What does it mean that you can't donate 5? So now we're saying you could donate 5. It's just 4 is going to go for yourself, and the 5th is Beis Hamikdash. But if the Mishnah says you can't donate 2 and 5, and 2 is completely unacceptable, doesn't that also kind of sound like 5 is also unacceptable? Meaning you can't donate 5, you have to add a 6th. So it's a raya that there yesh kevel in nesachim. Says the Gemara, Katani chamisha dum deshnaim, my shnaim delichasi klal, av chashinami lechazu klal. So the Gemara says no, midiri, hakadisa. No, 2 and 5 are different. Both are not going to be classic. 2 is completely unacceptable. 5, it's not going to be all donated for yourself. 4 for yourself and 1 for the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara then adds, Amar Rabbi, Imtim siloima in kevlan asachim. If we assume, like we said before, in kevlan asachim, in kevlan asachim, that I'm not bothered by the following question. But imtim siloima yesh kevlan asachim. But if you were to believe that there is a fixed amount for nesachim, so when you donate an amount, you have to be able to bring it entirely yourself. You can't split it up. So then adasara pshitale, until 10, you're fine. Because 3 is an option, 4 is an option, 6 is an option. If you donate 5, you'll have to add 1, it'll be 6. 7 is a combination of 3 and 4. 8 is a combination of 4 and 4. 9 is a combination of 3 threes. And 10 is also 6 and 4. So I already know that. The question is achadasa. The question is if you promise to donate 11, go to the next page, mi boile. Here's my question, what does a person intend when he says 11? Again, if you hold yesh kevel nesachim, that means that you have to have the proper amount, and if not, you have to add to it. So when a person says 11, there's 2 options here. Either 11 is really not 11. Really, he means he has to get to 12, because a bull is 6, and he really should bring 2 bulls. Or, legaver l'shnei parim kamachav, do we assume the man really intends to offer the amount of wine that's 2 bulls, which is 12? But he has to add 1 to be 12. Or you could do 11. How do you get to 11? 2 rams, which is 4 each, and a lamb. A lamb is 3, and a ram is 4. 4, 4, and 3. So the question is, does it make more sense that the person would rather stick with the same animal twice, 2 bulls, or a combination of rams and lambs? So trei mechad mina v'chad mechad mina amrinan aloi. My teku, that he's not sure about. Now, by the way, the difference between, like, let's say 10 is also a bull and a ram. It's 4 and 6. But over there, you have no choice. You have to have a combination of multiple animals. But over here, you could legitimately say it's 11 and it's multiple animals, or you could bump it up to 12 and the same animal. That's the question. He's not sure. New Mishnah. Misnadvin yayin. You're able to donate wine as a standalone carbon. Ve'en misnadvin shemen. But you're not able to donate oil. Divrei Rav Akiva. So Rav Akiva Shita. Rav Akiva feels there's no source you could donate oil as a standalone carbon. Rav Tarfon misnad Shem. Tarfon says no, you could. And you do is you pour off a little bit of the oil as the kamitz, and the rest are eaten by the kahanim. Rav Tarfon. Rav Tarfon says, how do I know that you could donate oil? Because mamitzino b'yayin. Well, oil is a libation. Wine is a libation. Shehu b'chai v'banadava. Av shem and shehu b'chai v'banadava. The same way wine is able to be donated with a carbon and also optionally on its own. So it stands that oil should also be able to with a carbon and optionally on its own. Rav Akiva says, "Law, you can't compare wine to oil." So Rav Akiva says, no, wine, it makes sense that it should be able to be a standalone carbon because even when it's brought with an animal, it's poured on its own. When you bring, let's say, a shlamim, the wine is not poured on the animal. It's not with the animal. It's on its side. So wine is sort of always a little more independent. So it makes sense that it could be its own independent carbon. But when it comes to oil, when it comes with an animal, it's mixed with the flour. It's not like you pour oil on the mizbech. It's not just like it's just pouring oil. It's always with the flour. So where do we find? We don't have a precedent that wine should be able to be poured on its own. The Mishnah then ends off. Ein shnayim misnadvin isaron echad. 2 people cannot donate 1 isaron of flour. Meaning you can't just have 2 partners in donating an optional mincha. Avol misnadvin oila ushlamim, but they're able to donate an oila and a shlamim, v'oif afilu predachas, and even a bird, even though it's very, very cheap, they're able to donate. Partners are able to partner in these animals. Amar Rava medivrei shneim nilmoid. You do see from Rav Tarfon and Rav Akiva's conversations, they're arguing about oil, but misnadav the minchas nesachim chol yom, that a person is able to donate a minchas nesachim. A minchas nesachim is they're arguing whether oil can be brought on its own, but the implication is that everyone can bring minchas esachim, which is a carbon consisting of flour, oil, and wine, even without attaching it to an animal. Even though normally we had different menachos that are optional, minchas esachim is not one of those 5. Minchas there were multiple optional minchas. There were kikin and chalas and machvas and marcheshes. Then there's minchas esachim, which is always the mincha that goes with the carbon. It's flour, oil, and wine. You're able to donate that. Says the Gemara Pshita, it's Pashit. Yeah, it's Pashit. Now, says the Gemara, why not? Why wouldn't I think so? Now, the same you might think because the Torah lists 5 optional menachos, and this is not one of the 5. Hani chamashas in tefelo kamashmala no hani mili bistama avahicha de parish. The answer is no. When the Torah lists those 5 as options, it means those are the 5. When a person says he's going to bring a mincha, it's one of those 5 without specifying. But if a person wants to specify minchas esachim, he's able to donate a minchas esachim as well. Ein shnayim misnadvin. 2 people are not able to partner in a mincha, my taima. Now, why is it? Basically, the Gemara is going to say, why is it that 2 people can partner in an oila, 2 people can partner in a shlamim, but not a mincha? And if it's like specific words, we find the same words by an oila as we find by a mincha. My taima, ilay mishun dichsiv takriv, because it says takriv by a mincha, which is singular, so it can't be partners. But oila nam yaksiv yakriv. It also says singular by an oila. Ela oila my taima. So why is that an oila you can have partners? You can have shotvim dichsiv lo oila seichem, which is plural. It also says plural by a mincha. So the Gemara says, it says the word nefesh, a soul. Nefesh ki yakriv. Nefesh, and because the soul is singular, 1 soul is able to donate a mincha and not 2 souls. Tanya Mehalki, the Brisa similarly states that the reason why you can't have shutvim is because the word nefesh, Rabbi Omer yakriv karbana l'chol nidrechem, l'chol nidvoisam, yakriv la'Hashem. Hakol ba mishutz, all karbanos able to be, all optional karbanos able to be brought in partnership, l'silga kasa mincha, except for a mincha shenemer nefesh. Rabbi Yitzchak, this is the first Rashi, I think, in Parshas Vayikra, if I'm not mistaken, that the pasuk says, it's the first Rashi when it comes to the topic of minchas. Why does it say the word nefesh regarding the mincha and not by an oila or a shlamim? Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, who is the one who's going to actually donate bread? In ani, obviously someone who's poor who can't afford more than that. So the poor person might feel bad that he can't afford more, and he might feel like what he's giving is shvach. To that the pasuk says, nefesh ma'ner li'alav ki'ilu hikrev nafshe lefanai. That if a person donates a mincha because that's all he could afford, it's as if he gave his soul to Hashem. Rav Yitzchak, man ishtanis mincha shenemer ba chamisha mini tigun halalu. Why is it that the optional minchas have 5 different types, as opposed to an oila, which is just an optional oila? Why is there 5 different types of minchas? So the Gemara says, mashal lemelech basav adam. It's comparable to a melech basav adam she'as le'av v'isuda. That you have a poor person who invites the king to the meal. The king knows that the poor person can't afford anything nice, so the king says to the poor person, just make different types of bread for me, and then I'll be very happy. So Hashem knows that the ani can't afford such different types of food, so he says, just I'll give you as many options of minchas as you can. I'm going to enjoy all these different types of bread. Okay, the Mishnah starts off, this is talking about someone who makes a neder but doesn't clarify. If a person just says, Harei alai isaron, he says he's going to bring an isaron of a mincha. He just says isaron. Now, he didn't say multiple, he didn't say how much, he just said an isaron, so then it's isaron, it's pretty simple. But if he says esronos, plural, without specifying how much, yavi shnayim, the minimum of plural is 2. Pirashti, if a person says, I promise to bring a mincha, and I specified a definitive number of isronos, but I don't remember how much. So yavi shishim isaron, you should bring 60. The maximum, as we had yesterday, the maximum amount of isronos in one kli is 60. So if a person said, I definitely promised to bring an amount of isronos, but I don't remember how much. So the max in one kli is 60. Now, even though it's possible that he donated less than that, meaning it's possible he really promised 20, but 60, this Tana believes that having more than 20 it covers 20. Meaning, if I promise 20 and I bring 60, so 20 is included in 60. That's not a problem. As we'll see in a little bit, Rabbi disagrees with this. Rabbi feels that if you have too much, that's a problem. Harei alai mincha. If a person says he's going to bring a mincha, but he doesn't specify which type, yavi eza sheyirtze, he can bring one of the 5 optional types. Review the oimer yavi minchas hasoilus. He should bring the minchas soilus shemiyuchedesh mincha because it's the most chashuv of the mincha. The Gemara will explain exactly what that means. Mincha or min ha-mincha. If a person says he's going to bring a mincha or a type of mincha, but he doesn't specify which type, yavi achas. He brings 1. Mincha is singular. Menachos or menachos yavi shtayim. If he says menachos, then he brings 2 because that's the minimum of plural. Pirashi, if a person says, I promise to bring a mincha, and I specify which type, ve'eni de izmen pirashi, I don't remember which one of the 5 optional ones I said, yavi chamishin, he has to bring 1 of each type. Pirashi mincha shel esronim, the 6th and last teaching, if he says, I specify to bring a mincha with a certain amount of esronim, ve'eni de pam pirashi, I don't remember how much, yavi shishim yisaron, he brings 60. Now this is almost identical to what we said of the second teaching. But then Rabbi Omer, no, Yavi Menachos shel esronos me'echad ve'ad shishim. Rebbe's shita is that you can't have too much. So therefore, just bringing 60 is not going to help. So what you have to bring is 60 different menachos consisting of a range of one. You bring one, and then you bring a kli that has two, and then you bring three, and then you bring four, and then you bring five. So Rebbe's shita is you have to bring not just 60, not just one that has 60 esronos. You have to bring 60 different kalim, each one going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 60. Now, it seems that Rebbe should be disagreeing on the second case as well, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's just finish up. The Gemara says, Pshita, the first case of the Mishnah is that if he said Nisaron, you have to bring a Nisaron. And then if he said two, Isronos, you have to bring a minimum of two. So the Gemara says, Nisaron is Pshita. The answer is, you're right, that's Pashit. It was only said that for the flow for the second case, which is a Chiddush. Isronos Yavishtayim. It's a Chalei. So the Gemara says, Hanami Pshita, isn't that also Pashit? The answer is, it's not a big Chiddush, but it's telling you that the minimum of plural is two. Okay, then the Mishnah said the second case, which is if I said a certain amount of Esronos, but I don't remember how much, so you bring 60 in one kli because that's the max. Then the last case of the Mishnah is that if a person said he's going to bring a certain amount of mincha and he doesn't specify, and he said, I said an amount of Esronos, I don't remember, so the Tanakama said 60 in one kli, and then Rebbe said, no, you have to bring 60 different kalim, with each one having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the question is that second teaching. He says, Parashi v'nidema parashi. I specified a definitive number of Esronos, but I don't remember how much. So you have a Shishim Yisar and you bring 60 in one kli. So the Gemara says, Maitana, who is the author of that second teaching? So Amar Chizkiya, very simply, to like Rebbe. It's not like Rebbe. Di Rebbe, Amar Yavi Menachos shel Esronos me'echad vat shishim. It sounds like it's not Rebbe, because Rebbe in the end of the Mishnah said having too much in the kli is a problem. So that second teaching is not like Rebbe. But we'll end with this. Rav Yochanan Amar, no. The truth is, it could even be Rebbe. The case is as follows. The last case where Rebbe disagrees is where you said, I'm going to bring a certain amount in one kli. Now, Rebbe's shita is you can't have too much. So you can't just bring 60 in one kli, because if you donated 20, it's too much. So you have to bring 60 different kalim, and each one has to have a different number. Because if you said 20, you have to have 20. And if you said 21, it has to be 21. So you have to have separate kalim, because you have to have a certain amount in one kli, and the only way to do this is have 60 kalim, each one with a different number, advancing in range. The second teaching is also Rebbe. But Rebbe doesn't disagree fully. He kind of agrees, kind of disagrees. The second case is where a person said, I'm going to bring 60, or I'm going to bring a certain amount. He didn't say how much, but he did not specify it has to be in one kli. So it actually could be split up. The Tanakama, the Mishnah says you bring 60 in one kli. Rebbe actually disagrees, but not fully. Rebbe agrees that it's 60, but he believes you have to have in separate kalim. The reason being is because Rebbe holds in one kli is too much is a problem. But you don't have to bring 60 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because you're able to split it up into multiple kalim. Meaning, if you said 20, it doesn't have to be in one kli. So here's what you do. You bring 60 different kalim, one in each. So you are bringing 60, but in 60 different kalim. I'll tell you why. If you donate, let's say, 1, so you brought the first one to cover it. Let's say you donated 2, so then the first 2 covers it. The rest are extra, and they're nadavas. The reason being is because, according to Rebbe, you can bring as many as you want. You could bring them in multiple kalim. You just can't exceed the number. So you can't just bring 1 with 60, because that's going to help you. You bring 60 in 60 different kalim, and then each kli is mitzaref with each other, and then once you hit the amount, then you're covered. So Rebbe agrees with the second case, kind of, but not fully, but it's not as much of a machlekes as we thought. All right, we'll stop.